faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world.
Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk.
Today I'll interpret for you the ancient Greek epic, the Odyssey. The ancient Greek philosopher Xenophon once said that all human thought was initially shaped by Homer, but this might be a bit exaggerated. However, Plato said Homer was the teacher of all Greece, and this was indeed true in Greek society at that time. In 1955, on an island in the Bay of Naples, Italy, a large cup from over 700 BC was unearthed, inscribed with, "I am Nestor's good cup. Whoever drinks from me will be tempted by Aphrodite, wearing a beautiful garland." Nestor and Aphrodite are key figures in Homer's epics. This inscription fully proves that people widely knew about Homer's epics as early as over 700 BC. And over the more than 2,000 years since its creation, Homer's epics have received countless praises. Tolstoy once said, "Homer's epics feel naturally close to us, as if we lived among gods and heroes." He praised the romantic poet Keats, who described reading Homer as a profound awakening moment in life. He said it was like being the first to discover the Pacific Ocean, standing on a mountain peak in astonished silence, speechless and gazing around. Who was Homer? Reliable historical records about him are extremely scarce. According to legend, people believe he was a blind man. When a person loses their sight, their memory and expression abilities strengthen. In an era without writing, Homer used his strong memory to synthesize oral songs from around the Mediterranean into epics, refining them into today's versions, passed down orally for centuries. Of course, some researchers think Homer might not be one person, but a collective name for poets, and many doubt he created the epics, suggesting they could be later forgeries. However, in 1888, archaeologists found a papyrus with the Odyssey written on it inside a mummy sarcophagus in Egypt. This is currently the earliest known manuscript of Homer's epics. It dates back to around the 3rd century BC. This precious artifact is now in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Homer's epics are divided into two parts, the Iliad and the Odyssey, created around 750 BC. The Iliad tells of the Greeks' expedition to Troy and their victory in the Trojan War. Today, we'll discuss the Odyssey, which tells the story of Odysseus, king of Ithaca, and a key Greek general after defeating Troy, who spent 10 years wandering before returning home to reunite with his family. The book's title, Odyssey, originally means the Song of Odysseus in Greek. The entire poem has 12,110 lines, involving hundreds of characters and gods, and the plot is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 covers books 1 to 4. Odysseus' son, Telemachus, goes out to search for his father. The second stage is books 5 to 13, describing Odysseus' journey home. Part 3 is books 14 to 24, writing about Odysseus taking revenge on the suitors after returning home. First, we look at Part 1, Telemachus searching for his father. Because the Prince of Troy abducted Helen, Queen of Greece, the kings of Greek city-states organized a huge army to fight in Troy, east of the Aegean Sea. And now, the war lasted 10 years, and finally the Greeks won. The Greek military leaders faced many hardships and returned home one by one. But only one hasn't returned. He is Odysseus, king of Ithaca in Greece. Why? It turns out that Odysseus blinded the one-eyed giant Polyphemus on his journey, and this Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon, god of the sea. Poseidon held a grudge and constantly set dangers for Odysseus, causing him to drift between the sea and various islands for nearly 10 years, unable to return home. While Odysseus was away, his wife Penelope was still waiting desperately for his return. His son Telemachus has also grown up.
Young nobles of Ithaca thought Odysseus was dead and swarmed to court Penelope.
First, to gain Penelope's wealth. Second, to claim the throne of Ithaca. More and more suitors came, stayed in Odysseus's home, feasting daily, slaughtering his livestock, forcing Penelope to choose a husband among them. Telemachus, who hadn't seen his father for 20 years, was almost in despair. He gradually started to believe his father had drowned at sea, but Penelope still believed Odysseus would return.
She said she had to finish weaving a shroud for her father-in-law before considering marriage, and she undid the weaving daily to stall the suitors.
On Mount Olympus in Greece, the gods witnessed Odysseus's sufferings, and Zeus decided to help him return home while Poseidon was away from Olympus. So, Athena, daughter of Zeus, transformed into an elder and came to Ithaca. She told Telemachus that Odysseus would return soon, then suggested he convene an assembly to denounce the suitors to the people. Then Telemachus followed Athena's advice. He held a public meeting, publicly condemned the suitors for harassing his mother and depleting their family wealth, and announced he would travel to seek news of his father.
Afterwards, with Athena's help, he gathered 20 companions, evaded the suitors' surveillance, prepared a swift ship, and embarked on his journey to find his father.
They visited the lands of Nestor and Menelaus, both heroes who were old comrades of Odysseus from the war. They reminisced about Odysseus's role in the Trojan War and the early stages of his return voyage. In Nestor's kingdom, Telemachus witnessed a grand sacrificial ceremony. Nestor solemnly handed a golden cup to Athena disguised as a mortal, then to Telemachus. The large cup we mentioned at the program's beginning refers to this golden cup. At the residence of the other hero Menelaus, Telemachus learned his father was detained by the goddess Calypso on an island, unable to return home. Telemachus decided to remain abroad, continuing his search and waiting for the right moment to return to Ithaca. And then comes the second part, where the epic uses flashback to recount Odysseus's 10-year journey home. Originally, after leaving Troy, Odysseus, like other commanders, yearned to quickly return home. But his fleet unfortunately encountered a terrible storm that lasted 9 days and nights. Finally, they docked at the island of the Cyclopes. Odysseus took several companions to search for provisions, entered a giant's cave midway, and unexpectedly got locked inside by the one-eyed giant Polyphemus, who eats several companions. While Polyphemus slept, Odysseus blinded his single eye with a sharpened tree trunk, then escaped the cave by hiding beneath sheep. Humiliated and enraged, Polyphemus asked his father Poseidon to avenge him by cursing Odysseus to have a troubled journey home. Odysseus continued sailing. On an island, wind god Aeolus gifted him a bag containing all winds except the west wind needed for their voyage, ensuring smooth sailing. They were nearly home when, tricked by gods, Odysseus's companions opened the bag out of curiosity while he slept. And the winds rushed out, creating whirlwinds that blew for 7 days and nights, driving them back to a small island, undoing all their progress. Actually, such fruitless voyages were just minor setbacks. In the subsequent stories, Odysseus's companions died one by one under even more brutal blows.
In the land of Telepilas, giants hurled stones at Odysseus's fleet.
Except for Odysseus's ship, all crew members on other vessels were crushed to death. They continued forward in grief. At the foot of a cliff, Odysseus encountered the six-headed monster Scylla, who seized 6 companions, hung them up struggling and screaming in midair. This was the most gruesome scene Odysseus witnessed during his homecoming journey. Later, before reaching the sun god's island, a goddess warned them the island housed sacred cattle that must never be slaughtered. Odysseus made his companions swear not to harm the cattle, but unfavorable winds forced them to stay a month, exhausting their provisions. One day when Odysseus went to pray, his starving companions killed the sacred cattle. The enraged sun god threatened Zeus that, without punishment, he'd stop shining on earth. Consequently, when they sailed away, Zeus's storm shattered their mast, killed companions, and struck them into the sea with lightning, and died. Finally, only Odysseus remained, clinging to wreckage, drifting 10 days until reaching the goddess's island. Calypso's island was beautiful, where the goddess cared for Odysseus, wanting him as her husband with immortality promised. Though Odysseus longed daily for his family in Ithaca, Calypso detained him, forcing a 7-year stay. Compared to previous violent punishments, Calypso's island was the gentlest exile, yet the longest captivity. During this time, the gods on Mount Olympus decided to let Odysseus return, with Athena going to Ithaca. After meeting Telemachus, she urged Zeus to send a god to rescue Odysseus. Thus, Hermes brought Zeus's command to Calypso's island, demanding Odysseus' release. Calypso prepared voyage supplies and taught Odysseus celestial navigation. Odysseus built a raft and finally resumed his journey home. However, after sailing alone at sea for 18 days, he was spotted by Poseidon returning from abroad. Poseidon still held a grudge. He knew he couldn't stop Odysseus from returning home, but he wanted to inflict one last disaster. So, he stirred up massive waves and storms at sea. Odysseus was thrown into the ocean. He struggled to swim to shore, only to find sheer cliffs before him. Waves surged from behind, hurling him into the air. With Athena's help, he grabbed onto the cliff walls. After several attempts, he finally found a river mouth, climbed onto an island, and hid in the bushes. This island turned out to be the land of the Phaeacians. Odysseus asked the king and queen to help him return home. At a banquet, he recounted in detail his 10-year journey's hardships, winning the king and queen's sympathy. The king gave him many gifts and prepared a ship to send him home. Exhausted, Odysseus fell into a deep sleep on the ship, sleeping like the dead. All right, now we've reached the third part, which mainly tells the story of Odysseus after returning to Ithaca. Odysseus slept the whole way. When he woke up, he was in Ithaca. But after 10 years away and Athena casting a spell, Ithaca was shrouded in thick fog. Odysseus no longer recognized the scenery of his homeland. At that moment, Athena transformed into a shepherd and told Odysseus, "You're home now." Odysseus was overwhelmed with excitement, but Athena told him, "You can't reveal your identity to your family just yet." The goddess instructed Odysseus to disguise himself as an old beggar, conceal his identity, and first seek out the loyal swineherd. Meanwhile, Athena recalled Telemachus to reunite father and son at the right moment and plan how to punish the suitors. But except for the swineherd and Telemachus, Odysseus remained an old beggar in others' eyes. During this time, disguised as a beggar, Odysseus tested the loyalty of his household slaves. He met his wife Penelope, fabricated his background to her, and told her that Odysseus would return soon. Out of gratitude to this beggar, Penelope had a maid wash his feet to relieve his fatigue. Odysseus requested the old nurse to wash his feet. As she knelt to serve him, she saw the scar on Odysseus's leg and was greatly shocked. The old nurse had raised Odysseus since childhood and was very familiar with this scar. It was Odysseus's mark, so she recognized this beggar before her. It was none other than the former king Odysseus. Odysseus signaled the old nurse not to make a sound. Facing the aggressive suitors, Penelope proposed a husband selection method. She produced Odysseus's old bow, challenging suitors to string it and shoot through 12 axe heads lined up. Whoever succeeded would marry her. Suitors tried but couldn't even string the bow, let alone shoot. Odysseus asked to try, but the crowd mocked him for overestimating himself. Telemachus then ordered a servant to hand the bow to Odysseus. Odysseus stroked the bowstring like a musician, effortlessly strung it, and shot straight through. After piercing the axe row, Odysseus tore off his rags, revealing he was the king who hadn't returned for 20 years. Odysseus loudly condemned the suitors while Telemachus stood armed beside his father. A bloody massacre ensued. Athena joined the fight, helping Odysseus kill countless opponents and disloyal servants, filling the hall with corpses. During the battle, Athena cast Penelope into a deep sleep. When she awoke, the fighting was over. The old nurse then revealed the beggar was Odysseus. Even with Athena restoring Odysseus's appearance, Penelope remained skeptical. She proposed identifying her husband by having him describe their marriage bed's secret. Their courtyard had an olive tree whose branches Odysseus had trimmed. He'd built their bed around its trunk, a secret only they knew. Odysseus accurately recounted the bed's origin. Penelope finally believed him.
After 20 years apart and rare suffering, the gods had reunited them.
Next day, Odysseus visited his father Laertes. News of the suitors' deaths spread, and noble families organized to avenge them. Zeus advised Athena that Ithaca's nobles and Odysseus should cease war and swear a treaty. Athena came to Ithaca and halted the battle just before chaos erupted. Zeus also hurled a sulphurous thunderbolt, ordering them to cease fighting, swear an oath, and restore peace. That's essentially the story of the Odyssey. The epic features numerous characters and deities, some heroic, some mysterious, some playfully mischievous. These figures accompany Odysseus's journey, forming complex breakthroughs in human-divine relationships. But undoubtedly, all these characters serve to establish Odysseus's heroic image and explore the mystery of his spirit. This is precisely the key to understanding this epic. Odysseus embodies ancient Greek heroic spirit. The epic's opening line praises him as the man of twists and turns, followed by terms like resourceful and shrewd to describe his character. And, meanwhile, the epic frequently uses words like scheming, cunning, and wily to depict him. Thus, Odysseus is both clever and full of tricks. Next, we'll separately examine these two traits. Odysseus's cleverness is one reason he gained a fine reputation in the war. At Troy, Odysseus and other commanders hid inside the wooden horse to infiltrate the city. Suspecting a trick, Trojans sent Helen near the horse. She imitated Greek commanders' wives' voices to test for movement inside, and some commanders nearly responded. Odysseus recognized the trap. He lunged to cover companions' mouths, preventing responses, making Trojans lower their guard. Greek soldiers burst from the horse, captured the city, ending the brutal Trojan War. Actually, before the Trojan horse, Odysseus, disguised as a beggar, infiltrated Troy, gathered intelligence, and escaped unscathed, showing immense courage and wisdom. Another example. When Polyphemus asked his name, Odysseus said he was called Nobody.
Blinded Polyphemus screamed! Giants outside the cave came asking what happened!
Polyphemus said his eyes blinded Nobody. Outside the cave, giants, hearing Nobody, they thought no help was needed and scattered, letting Odysseus escape safely. But Odysseus's cleverness differs from other classical heroes. His character includes cunning, unlike more straightforward warriors. In the Odyssey, Odysseus resorts to all sorts of tricks and lies to achieve his goals. Odysseus distrusts people and even gods. Calypso obeyed Hermes' advice, but Odysseus didn't trust her and made her swear not to deceive him. When Calypso bid farewell to Odysseus, he didn't trust her and made her swear not to change her mind or play tricks on him.
After Poseidon stirred up huge waves and threw him off the raft, a goddess emerged from the sea, gave him a white veil, and told him that by placing it under his body, he could float to shore. What?
But Odysseus didn't believe the goddess. After returning to Ithaca, when Athena disguised as a mortal to guide him, Odysseus fabricated lies to test her. After Athena revealed her divine form, Odysseus kept accusing her of not helping him escape his suffering. So, why is Odysseus so cunning and distrustful of anyone? There are two reasons. First, he followed the advice of Agamemnon's ghost, another Greek king. Mid-journey, Odysseus fell into the hands of the witch Circe, who advised him to visit the underworld to meet a prophet, hear his future fate, and get guidance to return home early. And, in the underworld, Odysseus met old comrades who fought with him at Troy. Among them, Agamemnon said that after returning home, he was brutally murdered by his wife and her lover. The story of Agamemnon's murder. Zeus mentioned this at the epic's beginning, but Agamemnon personally emphasized his wife's cruelty. He thus warned Odysseus not to be overly gentle with women and not to tell them everything he knows. Odysseus took his old friend's advice and didn't reveal his identity directly when returning home. But facing servants, son, wife, father, and others, he repeatedly tested them through disguise. The second reason for Odysseus's cunning is that he clearly knew he chose a different path from other commanders. He knew he would be in a crisis-filled world, so he had to constantly hide his true self use various tricks to avoid temptations set by humans and gods. For example, early in his voyage, Odysseus came to a country called the Lotus Eaters. He sent 3 men to investigate. The locals gave them lotus flowers to eat, and they completely forgot about their homeland, wanting only to stay on the island. It's Odysseus's fleet also passed through the Sirens' waters. The Sirens were enchanting enchantresses who sang the world's most beautiful songs to passers-by. Those who couldn't resist would drown in the melody, causing ships to wreck and crew members to become the Sirens' feast. To resist the siren song, Odysseus ordered his crew to plug their ears with soft wax and tie him to the mast. The siren song was so beautiful that Odysseus couldn't help wanting to hear it. He struggled, begging his companions to release him. His companions held him down tightly until the ship sailed away. The Sirens' waters were now safely behind them. Later, Odysseus was trapped on the island of the goddess Calypso, a place of eternal peace, where the goddess deeply loved him and promised immortality. Yet Odysseus wept day and night facing the raging sea. Whether the Lotus Eater's flowers, the Sirens' songs, or Calypso's paradise-like island, all symbolized forces rejecting human life experience. On these islands, time stood still. Memory was erased. Life became repetitive bliss without change. Even death itself was abolished.
But for Odysseus, life's essence was defined by past actions. He couldn't find happiness by forgetting his history or identity.
Simply put, one who erases their history ceases to be truly human. This was reflected during his underworld visit. After Agamemnon's spirit left, Achilles, the greatest Trojan War hero, arrived, ruling spirits as he did mortals. But Achilles told Odysseus, "I'd rather be a farmer or slave among the living than rule wandering spirits here." After leaving the underworld, a goddess told Odysseus, "You've visited Hades, meaning you've died twice in one lifetime." Odysseus had prematurely experienced death's realm. He understood mortality's meaning, yet chose, like Achilles vowed, to remain a mortal who lives and dies. Thus, as we said earlier, one who erases their history ceases to be truly human. Let me add, one who doesn't understand death doesn't understand humanity. Odysseus wandered naked between sea and sky, gradually losing all companions. He had no one to rely on, only his own mind and his own path to trust. He knew gods watched from above. He dared not oppose them, but would never yield passively. When using tricks, he sometimes seemed heartless, even morally flawed to some, yet his solitary struggle contained profoundly moving greatness. When the Phaeacians escorted him home, he lay in the ship fast asleep like a dead man. This death meant he'd left the divine world behind forever. He was about to return to his true human life. His real existence was beginning.
Famed scholar Abrams defined epic roughly as long narrative poetry about heroes deciding a nation or humanity's fate with solemn themes and elegant style.
Through our discussion, you've likely gained deeper insight into this definition. Homer's epics taught all later epics. His narrative standards lasted millennia. Unlike myths, where divine power drives plots, not human action. Not human deeds, but divine power. Yet epics focus on heroes, though mythic elements blend in, as seen in Homer. But in Homer's era, God's importance waned, making Odysseus's personality far more vivid than deities. So what roles do gods play in epics? And what's their relationship with humans? First, let's explore the gods' role. In Homer, the divine realm is crucial driving force. They shape mortals' fates, broadly and deeply intervene in human affairs. Take Odyssey Part 3. Athena guided nearly every step of Odysseus's revenge journey. First, after landing, Athena disguised him as a beggar, hid his identity, and housed him with the swineherd. Then she recalled Telemachus from reconnaissance, even arranging landing spots and sailing details. Later, when conflicts arose, Athena amplified suitors' arrogance to fuel Odysseus's fury. Athena also used divine power to enhance Penelope's beauty. When conflict erupted, Athena sent sleep upon Penelope alone, keeping her away from the turmoil. When Odysseus killed the suitors, Athena personally intervened to assist. After Odysseus reunited with his wife, Athena delayed the dawn goddess. The dawn's arrival and resolution of the noble conflict resulted from Athena and Zeus's deliberation. Now, the entire third part seems like Athena's puppet show. Many wonder, since Zeus decided Odysseus's return, why Poseidon's constant obstruction?
Why didn't Zeus resolve all difficulties for Odysseus?
Simply put, the Greek pantheon was polytheistic. Gods weren't under strict hierarchy, like later monotheism, where one supreme god controls life and death. The Greek pantheon resembled human social dynamics, with gods mutually checking each other. Poseidon was Zeus's brother and Athena's uncle. So when Odysseus questioned Athena's lack of help, she replied she couldn't easily fight her own uncle. Thus, still Greek gods held great authority. They couldn't alter specific human destinies. Odysseus's fate was to return. Poseidon could create disasters but not kill him. And though Zeus helped Odysseus return, he couldn't command Poseidon to stop attacking. Now, to the second question, without a sole ruler among gods, what's their relationship with humans? The gods still represent justice, not as supreme principle, but mediating between human life and cosmic order, coordinating humanity with ultimate justice. That is, gods occupy middle ground, neither creators of cosmic order nor participants in human cessal conflicts. As one scholar noted, Zeus's justice isn't an absolute necessity. This explains why Homeric gods shift between tender compassion and cold ruthlessness. If gods control fates like Odysseus, yet we call him the paradigm of self-determined fate among Greek heroes, isn't this contradictory? What is the relationship between Odysseus's struggle and the power of the gods? Actually, it's precisely within the limits represented by the gods that Odysseus gained self-awareness. Every time he followed his heart, he faced divine constraints. He bore these burdens with composure, continuously deepening his understanding of fate and courage to resist. At Greece's Temple of Delphi, the famous maxim, "Know thyself," is inscribed. This phrase is considered one of the core wisdoms of Greek culture. In Greek culture, know thyself specifically means recognizing both one's abilities and courage within divine coordination while acknowledging the boundaries of fate. In Book 18 of the Odyssey, Odysseus delivers a profound speech demonstrating his understanding of human-divine relations, helping us comprehend this issue. The original text states, "Of all creatures that breathe and move upon the earth, none is more wretched than man. They think they'll never suffer misfortune, while life gives them courage and health. Until gods bring various hardships they must reluctantly endure. Unwillingly mortals think this way as different times come from the Father of life. Truly, I too was once blessed among men, arrogantly committing many reckless deeds, trusting in my power, relying on father and brothers. One should never exceed limits, but silently accept all gifts life bestows." After achieving fame in the Trojan War, Odysseus still plundered cities and seized wealth post-victory. He once thought himself invincible, believing he could rule the world, but gods destined him not to grow arrogant. He survived countless near-death experiences before finally escaping calamity. When facing arrogant young nobles upon returning to Ithaca, he made this confession. This confession contains endurance and humility, reflecting a mortal's prudence and introspection after trials. This can be seen as the manifestation of Greek rational spirit. Beyond know thyself, Greek has similar expressions. In chaos, human thought creates order. All things must be doubted and verified. Thought has no boundaries. Greeks embraced life's joys while confronting the tragedy of mortality.
They've developed a thirst for knowledge and a passion for exploring the unknown world.
They insist on rational inquiry and exploration before answering life's profound mysteries. This explains Greek philosophy's flourishing and Homer's monumental status. His epics hold foundational significance in literary history and Western civilization. It laid the first solid cornerstone for Western civilization. Its literary significance begins with revolutionizing the epic genre. Homer established epic norms, holistic portrayals requiring deep understanding of human material existence, spiritual realms, and societal evolution. The Odyssey spans the entire Mediterranean, southern Europe, Western Asia, and northern Africa. Homer vividly depicts this vast terrain, diverse lifestyles, changing customs, and divine justice systems. It fully showcases Greek heroes' spiritual pursuits. Roman literature inherited Homer's spirit. Virgil's Aeneid mirrors the Odyssey's first half and the Iliad's second, echoing Homer's legacy.
But beyond epic conventions, the Odyssey pioneered Western literature's focus on individual experience.
Odysseus's journey, from arrogant warrior to solitary soul, from divine obedience to self-discovery, inspired medieval romances, picaresque novels, and modern buildings romance. The homecoming motif central to later fiction was established by the Odyssey. Homecoming implies prolonged absence. It means wandering through suffering and enlightenment, then returning to life's origin with both trauma and wisdom. Odysseus pioneered this pattern. Later works like Robinson Crusoe, Tom Jones' Gargantua, and The Sound and the Fury follow his homecoming blueprint. Beyond personal journeys and homecomings, the Odyssey shaped countless other literary traditions. For example, medieval poet Dante called Homer the king of poetry. The trilogy structure of the Divine Comedy, Inferno, Purgatory, and Paradise, was inspired by Odysseus's journey home. In 1992, Nobel laureate Derek Walcott wrote the epic poem Omeros, which means Homer in Greek, as a tribute to Homer. 20th century novelist James Joyce greatly admired Homer, especially the character of Odysseus. Odysseus's Latin name is Ulysses. Joyce's masterpiece Ulysses parodies the Odyssey, establishing him among the greatest modernist novelists. Homer's epics are foundational in Western civilization's development. They established Western civilization's standards across many dimensions. Some even consider them philosophy's origin. Post-Homer, Greek philosophers used his works to debate morality, law, and city-state customs, sparking philosophy's first peak. Odysseus's lifelong faith in wisdom and prudence contained philosophy's earliest seeds, though not fully formed. Plato recognized Homer's philosophical depth, igniting the ancient poetry versus philosophy debate about societal governance. As scholar Cheng Jimin notes in Introduction to Homer's Epics, Roman poet Horace believed Homer defined nobility and baseness and described beneficial living more clearly and brilliantly than philosophers. Reading Homer offers not just aesthetic pleasure, but cultivates wisdom, prudence, and rational endurance. Indeed, Homer founded philosophy, revered as such by both Greeks and Romans. As ethics progenitor, Homer's epics stand at civilization's dawn, not a fading creation, but humanity's eternal wellspring of vitality. That concludes our introduction to Homer's Odyssey. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.